Hello everyone, let's solve some problems associated with Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem, it applies only to right triangles. Now let's consider this right triangle. The two shorter side lengths that are A and the side length B are known as the legs of the right triangle, while the longest side length denoted by C is known as the hypotenuse of the right triangle. So according to the Pythagorean theorem, it says that A square plus B square is equals to the C square, which means that the sum of the squares of the two shorter side lengths is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. Now let's look at this problem, which says find the missing side length of the right triangle below. Since this is a right triangle, so according to Pythagorean theorem, A square plus B square should be equals to C square. In this right triangle, the two shorter side lengths are already given and we are asked to find this longest side length, that is hypotenuse. So let this side length be A, let this be B, and let this hypotenuse be denoted by C. Now substitute the value of ABC in the formula. A square means 4 square, B square means 3 square, which equals to C square means as it is. 4 square means 16 plus 3 square means 9, which equals to C square. 16 plus 9 equals 25, which equals to C square. Now switch their position to make C square as the subject of the equation. So C square equals to 25. Since we are just finding the value of C, so we don't want this exponent 2 here. So to remove this exponent of 2, take square root on both sides of the equation. Square root of C square is equals to the square root of 25. Exponent 2 and square root get cancelled out, which gives us C equals to square root of 25 is 5. So the length of this right triangle is 5 meter. Now let's go through this another question which says find the value of x. Since this is a right triangle, so A square plus B square must be equals to C square. In this right triangle, one of the side lengths and the hypotenuse is already given and we are asked to find this another side length as the value of x. So let this be A, let this be B, and let this hypotenuse be denoted by C. Now substitute the value of ABC in the formula. A square means 12 square, B square means x square, which equals C square means 13 square. 12 square means 144 plus x square, which equals to 13 square means 169. Since we are just looking for the value of x, so remove this 144 from this side of the equation by subtracting 144 on both sides of the equation. So 144 minus 144 plus x square equals to 169 minus 144. So we are subtracting this 144 on both sides of the equation to remove this 144 from here. And this gives us x square equals to 169 minus 144 equals 25. Now remove this exponent of 2 by taking square root on both sides of the equation. So square root of x square equals to square root of 25. Exponent 2 and square root get cancelled out, which gives us x equals to square root of 25 means 5. So the value of x equals to 5 meter. So guys, if you are new to the channel, don't hesitate to hit the like and subscribe button. Now let's look at this another problem. It says find the missing side length. Since this is a right triangle, so according to Pythagorean theorem, A square plus a B square must be equals to C square. In this right triangle, one of the side lengths and the hypotenuse is already given and we are asked to find another side length. So let this be A, let this unknown side length be B, and let this hypotenuse be C. Now substitute everything in the formula. A square means 7 square, B square means as it is, and C square equals to 25 square, which equals 7 square means 49 plus B square equals to 25 square is 625. Since we are just looking for the value of B, so remove 49 from this side of the equation by subtracting 49 on both sides of the equation. So 49 minus 49 plus B square equals to 625 minus 49. So we are subtracting 49 on both sides of the equation, which gives us B square equals to 625 minus 49 equals to 576. Since we are just finding this value of b, so remove this exponent 2 from here by taking square root on both sides of the equation. So square root of b square equals to square root of 576. Exponent 2 and square root get cancelled out, which gives us b equals to square root of 576 equals to 24. So this side length is 24. Now let's look at this word problem, which says a ladder descends 2 meters from a point 10 meters away. How long is the ladder? This is the rough sketch of the problem. Here is a ladder that is leaning against this wall, and the ground distance between the wall and the ladder is 10 meters, and this ladder reaches 2 meters up against the wall. The problem is asking what is the length of this ladder. Since this situation forms a right triangle, so a square plus b square must be equals to c square. So let this be a, let this side length be b, and let this hypotenuse be c, which is the length of the ladder. Substitute the value of ABC in the equation. A square means a 10 square, b square means a 2 square, which equals to c square is as it is. 10 square means 100, 2 square means 4, which equals to c square. 100 plus 4 means 104 equals to c square. Now switch their position to make c square as a subject of the equation. So c square equals to 104. Since we are just looking for the value of c, so remove this exponent of 2 by taking square root on both sides of the equation. So square root of c square is equals to the square root of 104. Exponent 2 and square root get cancelled out, which gives us c is approximately equals to square root of 104 is 10.2. So the length of this ladder is 10.2 meter. Now let's look at this last problem, which says how tall is the tent below. So this is a tent, and the problem is asking how tall is this height. Since the height of this tent divides its base into two equal halves, so which means this side length will be half of 12 meter, that is 6 meter, and then this portion is also half of 12 meter, that is 6 meter. So now let's take out this right triangle separately. This length will be 6 meter and this is the height, while this side length is 10 meter. Since this is a right triangle, so a square plus b square equals to c square. Let this side length 6 meter be a, let this side length height be b, and this 10 meter is hypotenuse of the right triangle. Substitute everything in the formula. A square means 6 square, b square means height square, equals to c square means 10 square. 6 square equals to 36 plus height square, which equals to 10 square means 100. Since we are just finding this value of height, so remove this 36 from this side of the equation by subtracting 36 on both sides of the equation. So 36 minus 36 plus h square equals to 100 minus 36, and which becomes h square equals to 100 minus 36 is 64. Now remove this exponent of 2 by taking square root on both sides of the equation. So square root of h square is equals to square root of 64. Exponent 2 and square root get cancelled out, which leaves us with h equals to square root of 64 means 8. So height of this tent equals to 8 meter.